My hope is that people can appreciate in a similar way that I did when I came away from watching the film, that one of the greatest female protagonists in history was not one-dimensional. You know, she was complex. She had a struggle. She, you know, for all we know, she could have had dreams to do something else.
Journey to Bethlehem is out in theaters now. And Joel, I'll start with you. Can you tell us why you wanted to be part of a part of the story of Mary and Joseph?
Because my wife was part of the story of Mary and Joseph.
Fair enough. Absolutely.
That's the real simple answer. No, the backstory is Adam Anders and Nikki Anders, who executive produced and directed the film, wrote all the music for the film. They reached out to Moriah last year and invited her to join the cast as Mary's sister, Deborah. And after a lot of deliberation back and forth, frankly, because she's been working on a country Latin project, she said, this is something I really feel passionate about. So off she went to Spain for a month, or 2 months rather. And I was going to fly out and visit for about 4 days, a month in. And about 2 days before I was flying out to visit, Moriah called me and said, hey, they've just brought on Antonio Banderas to play Herod, and they can finally cast his son because they're looking for someone who shared a likeness to him.
Right.
And they're like, they wanted to invite you. So instead of coming for 4 days, she said, pack a bigger bag. And I went over for 4 weeks. And so that was what sparked it. Since then. Because
doesn't this Australian man have such a likeness with the Spaniard Antonio Banderas?
Of
like,
course.
can't you see it?
I don't know. At any rate.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, what greater story to tell than Mary and Joseph? Been a lot of films about the end of Jesus's life and, the Passion of the Christ. The Chosen's done a great job of that. But not a lot of great films about the beginning. And so putting a little color and flair and music and a bit of a modern twist, it's a real special project.
So Moriah, I want to ask you, what made you want to be part of this film?
The version of Mary.
Yeah.
That was portrayed in the film, hands down. I mean, I have, like a lot of people in the world, been exposed to a very narrow interpretation of Mother Mary. You know, yes, reverent, yes, holy, but also at times demure, submissive. And this Mary is anything but. And I would say that I am probably also anything but. And so it's really special, I think, for a whole generation of people to relate to a Mary who is ambitious, who is very intelligent, who has plans for her life, and really struggles with accepting the high calling of what she was asked to do, but ultimately still makes that sacrifice. And there, it includes a certain potency when Mary's character is portrayed in that way. It's a lot more complex, and so I appreciate it.
Of course. And Joel, I'll ask you this. You mentioned your character a little bit, but how would you best describe Antipater?
Well, historically, he was the eldest son of Herod the Great that was killed by his dad. You imagine there's some daddy issues somewhere in there. And I think Adam and Nikki and the team did a good job of expounding on those daddy issues to create a real conflicted character between following in his father's footsteps, which was a murderer and a tyrant and a pretty evil man in the end, and recognizing as the son of a king, the true king. And I won't spoil it for those who haven't seen it yet, but there's this sort of beautiful moment where he interacts with the baby Jesus, and he's so moved by just Jesus's presence that, he is, depicted as the first almost convert to Christianity. And I love the power of that concept, that just the presence of Jesus can take someone who was so far away, who had all the power in the world, all the prestige, and yet had no peace, and can offer this man peace. So I was very drawn to being able to, convey that through this historical figure.
Right. And Moriah, I want to ask you, you played Deborah in the movie, who is Mary's sister, or one of Mary's sisters. So how would you best describe her?
Yeah, I think Deborah and Mary both represent opposite ends of the spectrum of where a lot of women find themselves today. You've got Mary, who, like I said, had her plan, had her vision, had her career in front of her. And then you have Deborah, who really seems to be this advocate for family and motherhood and matrimony. And I think the two really swing on the opposite ends of the pendulum, which allow for a whole narrative to be covered, like a whole population of women coming from a lot of different angles. A lot of us can fall kind of in between. And I really appreciated being able to lean into the side of me that is maybe a little more quiet, that voice that goes, look at the value of family, look at the beauty of growing your own family, setting your goals and dreams aside. Like, there is so much joy to be found in making selfless decisions. And there is also a lot of joy to be found in making sometimes selfish decisions, considering your cultural context. So I think Deborah is the yin to Mary's yang. And I'm glad that both voices are represented in the film.
Of course. Absolutely agree. And Joel, I want to ask you, we talked about Antonio Banderas being in this movie, but how was it like working with him?
Yeah. Well, a lot of fear and trepidation, right? I liken it to a few years ago. We had the chance to collaborate as a band with Dolly Parton, and it's just similar sort of prestige that comes along with that name. And I was really pleasantly surprised with Dolly just to find that she is as advertised. And then similarly with Antonio, he's a very Spanish man, but he's a very poised, a very professional, and a very kind man. And obviously one of the great actors of our time. And so it was a privilege. You'd have to pinch yourself. Even we went and saw a screening just recently. We both looked at each other and we were like, that's us on screen. And then Antonio would show up and I would be there and it'd be like, wait, that's me with Zorro. How crazy,
Puss in Boots.
It's Puss in Boots right there in the flesh. And me. But what was also really cool is that it's sort of fire and ice. Like, he was such a zany character in the film, this sort of out of control human, and his son was this very poised, sort of stoic Roman. And I liked creating like a pillar for him to sort of just dance around in these scenes. It was quite fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, it had to be very enjoyable. And Moriah, I want to ask you this. Fiona Palomo plays Mary in the film, and I got a chance to talk to her a couple of days ago, and I thought she did a great job. So how was it working with her and just seeing her play one of the most important people in history?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well put, well phrased question. Fiona and Stephanie, who was our third sister,
right?
And I got to spend a lot of time together during pre-production in Madrid, and we unfortunately we didn't know that we were given a little stipend to go shopping for a day just to spend time together, and so we ended up spending $5 each really on like vintage clothes. But the good news is we love vintage clothes, so it was so much fun. And just even in that time that we got to explore and shop and eat together and share stories and go to bookstores. Like we just, outside of the script, outside of the characters, outside of the story, got to really love and respect one another as women and develop a trust. And I think that that trust translates on camera. The truth is, Fiona had probably the most difficult role of all of the actors on set. And she was carrying the narrative of this incredible story on her shoulders. And what people don't know is that, you know, she was writing backstory and research and reading books about how people, you know, clothed themselves and bathed and ate in this time. Like, she's a real bookworm. And so I felt like Stephanie and I were able to be her wings and just support her on either side, whether we were in a scene with her or not. We would be on set. We would be asking her how she felt, what she needed. You know, we would wrap our days together and we would decompress on the van rides home. And I'm so thankful that we were able to support one another in that way.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And Joel, I'll ask you this. With this being a musical film, does this make the telling of Mary and Joseph's story a little more special?
Well, it's obviously an extraordinary, one of the greatest stories ever told, as the film writes. But I think what it does is it gives it an added layer of flair and emotion. You know, music has a way of just taking you to a whole other place. And there's just some incredible songs as part of it. Adam and Nikki are just world-class songwriters. And so yeah, I would say it really added a dimension to the film that has never really been depicted in this way before. And
yeah, do you feel like it shifted the dynamic that we're used to reading about?
I think so. The beauty of this, the biblical stories, is all of these little. It's like what The Chosen has done with Jesus' story. There's so many gaps in the in between. I'm not saying they broke out in song, but
you don't know that.
But I am saying that there's a lot that we don't know, and I think they had a really fun time musically exploring some of the emotions they might be feeling. You know, Mother to a Savior and King is one of the songs in the middle that Mary sings. And I cried several times because I resonated with her pain. You know, the lyric is like, how can I, something to the effect of, how can I carry a son when I need him to carry me? And it's like, this is just, that's what she would have been going through, you know?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. And Moriah, I want to ask you, ultimately, what do you hope that audiences take away from Journey to Bethlehem?
My hope is that people can appreciate, in a similar way that I did when I came away from watching the film, that one of the greatest female protagonists in history was not one-dimensional. You know, she was complex. She had a struggle. She, you know, for all we know, she could have had dreams to do something else. And I think for those of us who maybe have been tempted to feel like we need to count ourselves out of, you know, the narrative, if we don't fall in line with certain character qualities that are commonly accepted in religious circles. I hope this film just gives people liberty to believe that they count and they matter, even if, you know, they're feisty, they're aggressive, they're competitive, they're, you know, they fly off the handle, you know, whatever that be, you know, God has a way of taking even the sharpest character qualities and making them strengths for people. So that's my takeaway. I hope other people can take that away as well.
Absolutely. And Joel, I want to ask you, you're part of the music group King and Country with your brother Luke. What's next for you guys in terms of your music?
Yeah, well, it's funny because it sort of ties into movies. And I'll say this before I answer your question. with Journey to Bethlehem, I think we're at a real pivotal point in this theatrical release where if you're listening or you're watching and you're debating to go see it, I would encourage you, A, to go see it, B, go see it again, C, go see it with a friend. But if you can't or your schedule doesn't allow, even just to buy a ticket in the name, get on Fandango and just buy a ticket to say, I support these filmmakers, I support this picture. That will help it stay in theaters all the way through Christmas and help us make more stories like this. One of which is a story that Moriah and I sort of flipped to behind the camera. She co-produced and I co-directed a movie called Unsung Hero. That's a 90s film. It's a family film. Circles around a mom and her 6 kids and husband migrating from Australia to the United States. It's actually my parents' kind of origin story, Luke's and my parents' origin story. And comes out on April 26th theatrically through Lionsgate. We just launched the trailer this week, in fact. So it's out in the world for you to take a look at. And we're excited. The movies and music are kind of going hand in glove for Luke and me. It's not a musical. It's a very music-based film, Unsung Hero. And we're also doing a pretty elaborate soundtrack or inspired by a soundtrack for it with Lecrae and Michael W. Smith and Amy Grant and Stryper and a whole host of other artists. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be an exciting few months prepping for Unsung Hero for sure.
Of course. Yeah. I actually, when I saw Journey to Bethlehem on Sunday, I saw a trailer for Unsung Hero. So it looks really good. Yeah. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. So
you got more Smallbone than you can handle.
Absolutely. But Moriah, well, I want to ask you this. What I understand, you're in the upcoming film Reagan, which is all about Ronald Reagan. So what can you tell us about your character? What can you tell us about the film?
Yes. That is actually a really sweet cameo, I will say. It's a very quick moment in the film, so if you blink, you'll miss it. But I play a singer of that era that performed at one of Reagan's favorite dance clubs. And so, that was a really special film to be a part of. And the producer that invited me to be a part of the film also produced the very first movie that I did. Is a small independent film called Because of Gracia. And that was my first kind of dance with acting. And so if he calls me, my answer will always be yes.
Absolutely. And are you working on new music as well?
I am in the middle of a country Latin project, and I'm working with a wonderful producer here in Nashville, and we tracked a mariachi band out of Mexico recently. So we're blending and bringing two worlds together for something that's bicultural and really special and representative of my family and where we come from and where we find ourselves now.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Well, Joel and Moriah, again, I love Journey to Bethlehem. I hope more people go see it. I know more people will see it, and continued success to you. Thank you so much for your time, and happy holidays to you.